My stepmother handed me the papers with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I stood in my father's study, the same room where I'd learned to read, and watched Clara slide a freshly notarized across the mahogany desk. My name appeared once, in a single line that removed me from everything. Arthur, my father, sat in his leather chair avoiding my gaze like I was a stranger. My half-brother Miles leaned against a bookshelf, arms crossed, smirking. Finally cutting the dead weight, "Dad," he said. Clara's fingers drummed on the desk. "You have nothing now, Franklin." My hand trembled as I held the document, but something clicked in my memory. Years ago, when I saved the company from bankruptcy, Arthur signed something, a partnership agreement. It was locked away, forgotten by everyone except me. I folded it all carefully and looked at Clara's satisfied face. She thought she'd won. I walked toward the door, my heart pounding, but my voice steady. "We'll see about that." The rain hammered my windshield as I drove away from the estate. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Every insult from that room played on repeat in my head. Dead weight. Nothing. Worthless. I'd spent 15 years rebuilding what Arthur almost destroyed, and this was my reward. A signature erasing me. The wiper scraped back and forth. And suddenly I remembered. 20 years ago, the company nearly collapsed. Arthur was drowning in bad investments, and I spent 6 months restructuring everything. He was so grateful he signed a partnership agreement, giving me executive rights. That document made me more than just his son. It made me his legal partner. I slammed the brakes, tires screeching. The car behind me honked. My chest tightened. Where was that agreement now? In the old workshop, maybe. The place where Arthur used to keep sensitive files before Clara convinced him to modernize everything. But if I remembered it, Clara might too. She was methodical, calculated. If she wanted me gone completely, she'd destroy any evidence that contradicted her new will. I needed to move fast. The workshop sat behind the main house, a gray building I hadn't entered in years. Dust covered everything. Old furniture, forgotten equipment, metal filing cabinets lined against the walls like soldiers. I pulled open drawer after drawer, my hands shaking. Tax documents from 1998. Receipts for equipment I didn't recognize. Birthday card from my mother, who died when I was 12. Each discovery was a knife. Arthur had kept everything except what mattered. Hours passed. My back ached. My phone buzzed with calls from Clara, but I ignored them. Then, in the bottom drawer of the last cabinet, I found it, a locked metal folder with Arthur's initials engraved on the front. No key. I pulled at the lock, but wouldn't budge. Outside, gravel crunched. Footsteps approached the workshop door. I shoved the folder under a tarp just as the door swung open. Miles stood there, hands in his pockets, that same smirk plastered on his face. "Dad wanted me to check on the property," he said, scanning the room with those calculating eyes. "You looking for something you think can save you?" I kept my face neutral, stepping away from the tarp, just cleaning out old memories. I said. Miles walked deeper into the workshop, his shoes clicking on the concrete floor. His eyes swept over the open cabinets, the scattered papers. He was hunting. Clara sent him. "You know, Franklin, you should just accept reality," Miles said, picking up a dusty trophy from one of my high school achievements. "Dad's moved on. We're his real family now." I wanted to punch him. Instead, I smiled. "Maybe you're right." He looked surprised and suspicious. "Really? Really? I lied. I've got a life outside of this place anyway." He stared at me for another moment, then shrugged. "Good. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." He left, and I waited until his car disappeared down the driveway. Then I grabbed the metal folder and ran. The locksmith shop downtown was closing when I arrived. I banged on the glass door until the owner, an older man named Mr. Garrison, let me in. He examined the folder, then looked at me. "This is one of Arthur Ward's old seals," he said. "Haven't seen these in decades. Can you open it?" He nodded. The lock clicked open. My hands shook as I lifted the metal lid. Inside, yellowed paper sat perfectly preserved. The partnership agreement, dated March 1999, signed by both Arthur and me. My eyes scanned the clauses. Majority executor rights, equal decision-making authority, protection against unilateral changes to estate distribution. This document gave me legal power Clara couldn't erase with a new will. But at the bottom, a final clause made my blood run cold. It referenced the second document, an addendum extending my rights indefinitely, signed 5 years later. I flipped through the folder frantically. Nothing. The addendum was missing. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mr. Ward. A shaky voice asked, "This is Hollis. I used to handle your father's accounts." "I remember you," I said. Mr. Hollis had been Arthur's accountant for 30 years, until Clara fired him last spring. "You need to know what Clara's doing," he said urgently. "She's been isolating your father, firing anyone loyal to the old guard, transferring assets into Miles's name through shell companies." My stomach dropped. "The missing addendum," I said. "Do you know where it is?" "Still in the estate somewhere," Hollis whispered. "But Franklin, you're not just fighting a will. You're fighting a takeover." I had to see Arthur. Alone, I drove to the estate before dawn, parking down the road and walking through the back gardens. The house was dark except for one light in Arthur's bedroom. I climbed the trellis like I used to as a teenager, tapping on his window. Arthur's face appeared, gaunt and tired. He opened the window with trembling hands. "Franklin," he whispered, "you shouldn't be here." "Dad, we need to talk," I said, climbing inside. He looked older than I remembered, his skin paper-thin, his eyes clouded. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice cracking. "Clara, she said you didn't care anymore, that you were planning to sell everything." I didn't know what to believe. "I would never do that," I said. "Dad, she's lying to you." He started to respond, but footsteps thundered down the hallway. The door burst open. Clara stood there in her silk robe, her face twisted with rage. "Get out," she hissed at me. "This is my house now." "It's my father's house." I shot back. She grabbed Arthur's arm. "Arthur, tell him." My father looked between us, confused, afraid. Then he did something that changed everything. While Clara was screaming at me, Arthur slipped a folded note into my hand. Our eyes met. "Leave," he whispered. "Please." I left, but I had the note. I opened the note in my car, hands shaking under the streetlight. 3 words in Arthur's spidery handwriting. "The cabin. Drawer. Hurry." The family lake cabin. We hadn't been there in years, not since my mother died. If Arthur hid something there, it was because he knew Clara wouldn't think to look. My phone rang. "Clara." I ignored it. Then Miles. Ignored. Then a text from Miles. "Whatever you're planning, forget it." They knew I'd been there. I started the engine and headed north. The cabin was 3 hours away, deep in the state forest. The roads were empty this early. Dawn light filtered through the trees as I pulled up to the old wooden structure. Another car was already there. Miles's black sedan. I cursed under my breath and parked. Miles stood on the porch, arms crossed. "Predictable Franklin," he called out. "Dad's note said the cabin, right?" My heart sank. "How did you?" "Clara took a photo of every note Dad wrote this month," Miles said, smirking. "We knew you'd come here." He held up a key. "Already checked the drawer. Empty. Whatever you're looking for, it's gone." He walked past me toward his car, laughing. I watched him drive away, rage building in my chest. Then I walked inside. The cabin smelled like old wood and mildew. I went straight to Arthur's bedroom, to the old oak dresser. The top drawer was open, empty just like Miles said. I slammed it shut in frustration, but something felt wrong. The drawer was too shallow. I pulled it all the way out and set on the floor. Then I reached into the empty space and fell underneath. My fingers touched paper, a thin envelope taped to the bottom of the drawer frame. I ripped it free just as gravel crunched outside. Miles was back. I shoved the envelope inside my jacket and ran to the back window, squeezing through just as the front door banged open. "Franklin," Miles shouted, "I know you're here." I sprinted into the woods, branches whipping my face. Behind me, Miles crashed through the underbrush. I reached my car, fumbled with the keys, and peeled out as he emerged from the trees. 20 miles down the road, I finally pulled over. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Inside were photocopies of financial documents. Clara's signature appeared on dozens of transfers, moving money from Arthur's accounts into offshore holdings. But the signatures looked wrong. Shaky, traced, forged. I had her, but I needed that original addendum to make everything stick. The estate attorney's office smelled like old books and leather. Ms. Pemberton had known my mother, had helped draft her will before she died. She was one of the few people I trusted. I spread the documents across her desk. The partnership agreement, the forged financial transfers, the empty drawer. She studied everything through her reading glasses, her expression growing darker. Clara's actions are clearly illegal, she said finally. But Franklin, without the original addendum, she'll argue the partnership agreement expired. She'll tie this up in court for years. So what do? I asked. Find that addendum, Ms. Pemberton said. It's the only thing that gives you immediate legal standing. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Mr. Ward, this is County General Hospital. A woman's voice said, Your father collapsed 30 minutes ago. You should come immediately. I stood so fast my chair fell backward. Ms. Pemberton looked alarmed. What happened? It's Dad, I said, already running for the door. The hospital waiting room was chaos. Clara screamed at nurses, while Miles paced. I pushed past him toward Arthur's room, but a nurse stopped me. Family only right now, she said gently. I'm his son, I said. Clara appeared, blocking my path. He doesn't want to see you. The doctor emerged before Clara could have me thrown out. Mr. Ward's condition deteriorated due to improperly managed medication, she said, looking directly at Clara. We're investigating prescriptions he's been taking. Clara's face went pale. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything, the doctor interrupted. I'm stating facts. Someone's been giving him medication that contradicts his prescriptions. Miles grabbed Clara's arm. We should call our lawyer. They disappeared down the hallway, whispering urgently. A different nurse approached me, an older woman with kind eyes. Mr. Ward, she said quietly, your father asked me to give you something. She pressed a small key into my palm. He said you'd know what it opens. I looked at the key. A label read, Estate Safe Backroom. When did he give you this? I asked. Last week, she said. He was lucid that day. He said he was afraid he'd forget and that you were the only one he trusted. Tears burned my eyes. Thank you. She squeezed my hand. Your father's a good man. Don't let them take everything he built. I called Ms. Pemberton. I'm going to the estate, I said, with police escort. We're opening that safe tonight. 2 police officers accompanied Ms. Pemberton and me to the estate. Clara met us at the door, her lawyer beside her. You can't just barge in here, she said. Ms. Pemberton held up court documents. Actually, we can. Franklin has legal right to access estate property related to his father's business interests. This key was given directly by Arthur Ward. Clara's face twisted. That safe is private. Then you have nothing to worry about, I said, pushing past her. The safe was in Arthur's private office, behind a painting of my mother. Clara had redecorated the entire room, but she'd left that painting untouched. Maybe even she wasn't heartless enough to remove it. The key slid into the lock. The heavy door swung open. Inside were stacks of documents, jewelry that belonged to my mother, and a leather folder embossed with gold lettering. Ward Family Trust, Addendum 2004. My hands shook as I opened it. The original addendum, perfectly preserved. Ms. Pemberton read over my shoulder, her eyes widening. Franklin, she whispered, look at Clause 7. I read it, then read it again. The clause stated that if Arthur became mentally or physically compromised, Franklin Ward would immediately assume temporary executorship, superseding any will signed after the partnership agreement. Clara couldn't touch this. Ms. Pemberton smiled. She can't stop this. Clara screamed. I'll contest it in court. The accounting audit took 3 days. Ms. Pemberton hired a forensic accountant who'd worked on corporate fraud cases. Old employees started coming forward once they heard I was investigating. Arthur's former secretary, his driver, even the housekeeper Clara had fired. They all had stories. Money disappearing into Miles's consulting firm. Clara pressuring Arthur to sign documents while he was medicated. Intimidation tactics against anyone who questioned her. The forensic accountant, a sharp woman named Ms. Torres, presented her findings in Ms. Pemberton's office. Over the past 2 years, approximately $800,000 was redirected from estate accounts, she said, pointing to spreadsheets. The money went through 3 shell companies before landing in accounts controlled by Miles Ward and Clara Ward. Can we prove it? I asked. Without question, Ms. Torres said. The paper trail is clear. That evening, a process server delivered subpoenas to both Clara and Miles. I wasn't there to see their faces, but Miles called me screaming. You're destroying this family, he shouted. No, I said calmly. I'm protecting it. I hung up. Ms. Pemberton called an hour later. Franklin, the hospital called. Arthur's awake, and he's asking for you. This time, I didn't ask permission. I walked straight past Clara, in the waiting room, and into my father's hospital room. Arthur looked small in the hospital bed, tubes running from his arms, but his eyes were clear, really clear, for the first time in months. Franklin, he said, his voice raspy. I sat beside him. Dad. I'm sorry, he said, tears sliding down his wrinkled cheeks. Clara, she said you didn't care, that you only wanted money. She showed me documents, conversations she claimed you had. I was confused. The medication made everything foggy. I know, Dad, I said. It's okay. It's not okay, he said firmly, some of his old strength returning. I signed things I shouldn't have. I let her push away everyone who mattered. Your mother would be ashamed of me. Mom would understand. I said. She always said you saw the best in people. Arthur gripped my hand. I want to make this right. I want to confront Clara myself. I hesitated. Dad, you're not strong enough. I'm strong enough for this, he insisted. Get her in here. Now. I texted Clara. She arrived 10 minutes later with Miles, both looking nervous. The moment she entered, Arthur's expression hardened. I know everything, he said. Clara's mask of concern slipped. Arthur, you're confused. The offshore accounts. Arthur interrupted. The forged signatures. The medication that nearly killed me. I know all of it. Clara's face went white. Miles backed toward the door. Dad, let's talk about this privately. No, Arthur said, his voice ringing through the room. You're done manipulating me. Both of you. A nurse poked her head in. Is everything okay? Please have security escort these 2 out, Arthur said. They're no longer welcome in my room. Clara lunged forward, but hospital security appeared instantly. They didn't touch her, just stood between her and Arthur's bed. You'll regret this, Clara hissed at me. Miles was already gone, disappeared down the hallway. Security walked Clara out. Her expensive heels clicked against the tile, growing fainter. Arthur slumped back against his pillows, exhausted but satisfied. I need you to do something, he said. Anything, I replied. Restore the original estate plan. Everything goes back to how it was before I met Clara. He paused, but add one new instruction. Clara and Miles are permanently barred from managing anything related to the Ward legacy. Ever. Dad, are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything, he said. They showed me who they really are. I'm just sorry it took so long to see it. My phone rang. Ms. Pemberton. The audit found something else, she said, her voice urgent. You need to come to my office immediately. Ms. Torres spread new documents across the conference table. Her face was grim. While digging through Clara's transfers, I found something buried deeper, she explained. An offshore account in the Cayman Islands. It's in Arthur's name, but he never opened it. How much? I asked. $1.2 million. Ms. Torres said. Transferred over 18 months in small increments to avoid detection. The account signature is forged. This wasn't just theft. This was systematic exploitation. This is enough for criminal charges, Ms. Pemberton said. I've already contacted the district attorney's office. They want to meet with you and Arthur. I drove back to the hospital. Arthur was sitting up, looking stronger. I showed him the offshore account documents. He read them slowly, his hands shaking with rage. I trusted her, he whispered. I brought her into our family, into our lives. And she did this. We're going to stop her, I said. The DA wants to meet with us. Arthur nodded. Good. I want her prosecuted. Both of them. Within 24 hours, the district attorney opened an official investigation. Clara and Miles's assets were frozen pending the outcome. Miles's entire consulting business collapsed overnight when clients learned about the investigation. Neighbors who once envied Clara's lifestyle now whispered behind her back. She sent me a voicemail at 3 a.m, her voice slurring. You're ruining everything, she sobbed. I loved him. I really did. I deleted it without responding. Clara's attorney requested an emergency meeting. Ms. Pemberton advised me to attend with a witness present. We met in a sterile conference room downtown. Clara looked different without her makeup and designer clothes. Smaller, older, afraid. Her lawyer, a tired-looking man named Mr. Fisher, cleared his throat. My client wishes to discuss a potential settlement. We're not interested, I said. Clara leaned forward, tears streaming down her face. Franklin, please. I made mistakes. I got caught up in the lifestyle, the money, but I did love Arthur. I still do. You poisoned him, I said flatly. His doctors confirmed the medication interactions were deliberate. That was Miles's idea, she said desperately. He convinced me it would just keep Arthur manageable. I didn't know it would nearly kill him. She was throwing her own son under the bus. Miss Pemberton's expression remained neutral. If you withdraw the investigation, Mr. Fisher said, Clara will sign away all claims to the estate. She'll leave quietly. No, I said, but Clara started. You exploited a sick old man. I interrupted. You forged documents. You stole over $1 million. And you're asking me for mercy? Clara's face hardened. If you don't settle, I'll release a family secret that will destroy everything Arthur built. I smiled. It was Arthur's turn to surprise her. I pulled out my phone and played an audio recording. Arthur's voice filled the room. Franklin, if Clara threatens you with a situation from 1987, I want you to know I told you everything years ago. The business partnership that failed, the brief bankruptcy, the loan from your mother's family, it's all documented. There's nothing to hide. I stopped the recording and looked at Clara. The secret you're talking about? Arthur told me about it 10 years ago. It's embarrassing, but it has no legal significance. Clara's face crumbled. She had nothing left. No leverage, no power, no escape. Mr. Fisher stood. This meeting is over. They left. Ms. Pemberton turned to me. The will reading is scheduled for tomorrow. Are you ready? I thought about everything that happened. The humiliation in Arthur's study. The desperate search through dusty files. The race to the cabin. Finding evidence piece by piece. Nearly losing Arthur to Clara's greed. Yes, I said. I'm ready. That night, I visited Arthur. He was being discharged the next morning, strong enough to attend the will reading. How do you feel? I asked. Grateful, he said. For you, for the second chance. We're going to rebuild everything. I promised. Together, he smiled. Your mother would be proud. The words hit me harder than expected. I blinked back tears. I hope so. Tomorrow, we'd face Clara one last time. And tomorrow, we'd win. The reading took place at Miss Pemberton's office. Clara arrived in a black dress, dark sunglasses hiding her eyes. Miles slumped beside her, looking defeated. Arthur sat in his wheelchair, dressed in his best suit, his spine straight. I stood beside him. Miss Pemberton's associate read the original will first, the one Clara had created. As expected, everything went to Clara and Miles. Clara smirked. See, Franklin, You never mattered. Ms. Pemberton stood. However, she said, placing the partnership agreement on the table, this document, signed in 1999, predates any will and establishes Franklin Ward as Arthur's legal partner with majority executor rights. Clara's smirk vanished. And this addendum, Ms. Pemberton continued, producing a leather folder from the safe, extends those rights indefinitely and includes a clause that supersedes any later wills if Arthur becomes compromised. She looked directly at Clara. Medical records confirm Arthur was systematically over-medicated during the period he signed your will, rendering it legally invalid. The room was silent. Miles stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. We'll appeal. You can't? Ms. Pemberton interrupted. The partnership agreement was filed with the state and notarized. It's ironclad. She turned to Arthur. Mr. Ward, would you like to make a statement? Arthur wheeled himself forward. Franklin is the rightful executor of the Ward estate. Everything returns to the original distribution outlined before I met Clara. He paused. Clara and Miles Ward are removed from all beneficiary lists and banned from any involvement with Ward family holdings. Clara shot to her feet. You can't do this. It's already done, Ms. Pemberton said. She handed Clara a document. You have 72 hours to vacate the estate. Any property belonging to the Ward family must be returned. Clara looked at the paper, then at Arthur. After everything I did for you, you poisoned me. Arthur said quietly, you stole from me. You tried to erase my son. What exactly did you do for me, Clara? She had no answer. Miles grabbed her arm. Let's go. They left the office, Clara's heels clicking one final time. When the door closed, Arthur let out a long breath. It's over. It's over, I confirmed. Ms. Pemberton smiled. Congratulations, Franklin. You're now executor of one of the largest private estates in the state. The reality hit me. I'd won, not just a legal battle, but something more important. I protected my father's legacy. I'd honored my mother's memory. And I'd proven that truth, no matter how buried, eventually surfaces. Arthur reached for my hand. Thank you, son. Always, Dad, I said. We left the office together. Outside, the sun was shining. Birds sang in the trees. Everything felt lighter, cleaner, like a storm had finally passed. The estate would take months to fully sort out. Clara and Miles would likely face criminal charges. There would be more meetings, more paperwork, more decisions. But none of that mattered right now. Right now, Arthur was free, and so was I. 3 months later, I stood in Arthur's study, the same room where this nightmare began. But everything was different now. My mother's portrait hung above the fireplace again. The furniture was rearranged, comfortable instead of cold. Arthur's medical records showed improvement. No more mystery medications, just proper care and peace. Clara and Miles were officially charged with elder abuse and fraud. Their trial was set for next spring. I didn't attend the hearings. Ms. Pemberton handled everything while I focused on rebuilding. The company Arthur almost lost twice was thriving again. I brought back old employees Clara had fired, including Mr. Hollis. He worked beside me, helping restructure finances properly. One afternoon, Arthur called me into his office. I've been thinking, he said. The cabin. What about it? Your mother loved that place. We should restore it. Make it part of the family again. I smiled. I'd like that. He handed me an old photograph. My mother, young and laughing, standing on the cabin's porch. I was just a baby in her arms. She wanted you to have everything. Arthur said softly. The business, the estate, all of it, she made me promise. You kept that promise, I said. Eventually, he replied, after almost breaking it completely. We sat in comfortable silence. Outside, gardeners trimmed the hedges. Life continued, steady and sure. My phone buzzed. A message from Ms. Pemberton. Settlement offer rejected. Trial proceeds as scheduled. They're getting what they deserve. The months that followed were busy but peaceful. Arthur grew stronger every day. We had breakfast together each morning, talking about business, about memories, about my mother. He told me stories I'd never heard. How they met in college. How she believed in him when no one else did. How she'd made him promise to always put family first, even when business got complicated. I lost sight of that promise, Arthur admitted one morning. After she died, I was so focused on not being alone that I let the wrong person in. You couldn't have known, I said. I should have, he replied. You tried to warn me. Multiple times. What matters is we fixed it, I said. He nodded. Together. I visited the cabin one weekend. It looked different in daylight, peaceful instead of desperate. Workers were already repairing the roof, replacing rotted boards. Inside, I found more of my mother's belongings. Books she'd loved, her painting supplies, a journal I'd never seen. I sat on the porch and read her words. She wrote about me, about hopes for my future, about wanting me to be brave, to stand up for what was right. If you're reading this, one entry said, then I'm gone. But I need you to know something. Franklin, you are stronger than you think. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. Tears blurred the words. I tried, Mom. I whispered. I really tried. The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment, I swear I felt her there. The trial began on a cold Monday in February. I didn't attend most of it, but Ms. Pemberton called with updates. Clara's defense tried to paint her as a victim, manipulated by Miles. Miles's defense claimed he was following Clara's orders. They turned on each other completely. The jury didn't buy either story. The evidence was overwhelming. Forged signatures, bank records, hospital testimony about the medication, former employees describing the intimidation tactics. On the final day, I did attend. Arthur wanted to give a victim impact statement, and I wanted to be there for him. He rolled himself to the witness stand, declining the bailiff's help. When he spoke, his voice was clear and steady. Clara Ward and Miles Ward exploited my trust, he said. They isolated me from my son. They stole my money. They endangered my life. But most importantly, they tried to destroy my family's legacy. They failed, and I hope this court ensures they never get the chance to hurt anyone else. The courtroom was silent. Clara stared at her hands. Miles looked angry, but said nothing. 3 days later, the verdict came. Guilty on all counts. Clara received 4 years for elder abuse and fraud. Miles received 6 for his leadership role. They were also ordered to pay full restitution, though most of the stolen money had been recovered already. Justice, finally. Spring arrived with warmth and new growth. The estate gardens bloomed for the first time in years. Arthur hired back the old gardener, a patient man who'd worked for my mother. Everything was being restored, piece by piece. I stood in the workshop one afternoon, the place where this journey began. The metal filing cabinets were organized now. The dust was gone. I'd turned it into an office for myself, a place to work without forgetting where I came from. On the wall hung the partnership agreement, framed. A reminder that sometimes the most important things are the ones we almost forget. Arthur visited me there one afternoon. I want to add something to my will, he said. Okay, I replied. When I die, everything goes to you, obviously. But I want a specific clause about this workshop. It can never be torn down or sold. It stays in the family forever. I understood. This room represented survival. Evidence that truth doesn't disappear just because people try to bury it. I promise, I said. He smiled. Good. Now let's go get dinner. I'm tired of hospital food and business meetings. We drove into town, just father and son, no lawyers or investigators or drama, just us. At the restaurant, people recognized Arthur. They shook his hand, said they were glad to see him looking healthy. He introduced me proudly as my son, Franklin, who saved everything I almost lost. For years, I'd wanted that acknowledgement. Now I finally had it. 6 months after the trial, I received a letter. Clara's handwriting. I almost threw it away, but curiosity won. She wrote about prison, about regret, about how she convinced herself she deserved Arthur's wealth because she'd made him happy. I know you'll never forgive me, the letter ended. I'm not asking you to. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. For all of it, I showed Arthur He read it twice, then handed it back. Do you believe her? I asked. Does it matter? He replied. She's sorry she got caught. That's different from being sorry for what she did. He was right. I filed the letter away and never responded. Some people don't deserve closure. That summer, the cabin was finished. Arthur and I spent a weekend there, fishing and talking. He taught me how to make my mother's famous blueberry pancakes from memory. She made them every Sunday, he said, flipping one expertly. You always ate for. I still would. I laughed. We ate on the porch, watching the lake shimmer in morning light. Everything felt right for the first time in years. Thank you, Arthur said suddenly. For what? For not giving up on me. For fighting when I was too weak to fight for myself. You're my dad, I said simply. I wasn't going to let them take you. He nodded, eyes wet. Your mother chose well when she chose me, and I chose well when I chose you. A year after everything began, I stood in front of Arthur's desk with my own addition to the family documents, a charitable foundation in my mother's name, funded by a portion of the estate. It would provide college scholarships for kids who'd lost parents, helping them build futures despite their grief. Arthur read the proposal, then signed immediately. She would love this, he said. The foundation launched in October. Our first scholarship recipients included 10 students, each receiving full tuition support. At the ceremony, I spoke about my mother, about loss, about the importance of fighting for what matters. Afterward, a young woman approached me. My mom died when I was 8, she said. This scholarship means I can actually go to college. Thank you. I thought about my mother's journal, about her hopes for me. This was part of it, using what we'd saved to help others. That Christmas, Arthur and I decorated the estate together. No Clara demanding perfection. No Miles criticizing every choice. Just us, hanging ornaments and drinking hot chocolate. Best Christmas in years, Arthur said, stepping back to admire the tree. Agreed, I replied. My phone buzzed. Ms. Pemberton, sending holiday greetings and a final note. Clara filed for early parole. Denied. Miles's appeal was rejected. It's really, truly over. I showed Arthur. He raised his mug. To justice. And to family. To family, I echoed. We clinked mugs, and I felt my mother's presence again, warm and proud. We protected everything she'd built, and we'd built something new too. Today, I manage the Ward Estate and Company full-time. Arthur serves as chairman emeritus, offering guidance but trusting me with decisions. The business is stronger than ever. The foundation has grown, now supporting 50 students annually. And the family legacy, the one Clara tried to destroy, is secure. I still keep the partnership agreement in my office, a reminder that preparation and truth are powerful weapons. Sometimes late at night, I think about that moment in Arthur's study when Clara handed me the cutting me out, how small I felt, how defeated. I think about the drive home in the rain, when I remember the partnership agreement, that split second when everything changed. Because I didn't give up. I didn't accept their version of reality. I fought back with evidence, with truth, with the careful documentation my mother had taught me to value. Clara and Miles tried to rewrite history, but history has a way of defending itself when someone cares enough to dig for it. Last week, Arthur and I visited my mother's grave. We placed fresh flowers and sat on the bench nearby. Think she knows? Arthur asked. That we saved everything? I think she always knew we would, I said. Eventually, he smiled. She had faith in us, even when I didn't deserve it. She had faith in love. I corrected, and love won. We sat in peaceful silence as the sun set behind the trees, painting everything gold. The nightmare was over. The family was whole. And every document, every signature, every piece of evidence we gathered was filed safely away. Not because we expected another fight, but because we'd learned the most important lesson of all. The truth doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be preserved. And when the time comes, when someone tries to erase you, that truth will rise up like a shield, unbreakable, undeniable. Thank you. If you enjoy the story, subscribe, comment, like, and share. See you in the next video.